Thank you very much, and welcome to everybody to this Thursday, October the 10th council meeting. Excuse me. I'd like to acknowledge that we're holding this in the traditional territory of the Kalama Nation. And we're going to start with announcements. So I'll start with Councillor Almeida.
I will keep it simple today. This coming Saturday, our Kings are at home to, I believe, the Cranbrook Bucks coming in from out of town. So 5 o'clock game on Saturday to kick off your holiday weekend. And I will leave other sports stuff to, I believe Councillor Palm's got it at the other end of the table.
Okay. Councillor Isaacs.
Thank you, Mayor. I would love to remind everyone that early voting is now open for the provincial election. So between today up until next Wednesday, except for Thanksgiving Monday, voting is open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the rec complex. And then, of course, voting day is on the 19th. So encourage everyone to vote early, and invite your friends and family to participate in democracy. In terms of a lot of Halloween stuff coming up, but one item coming up quite soon is the Vampire Masquerade, which is at Dwight Hall this Saturday night. If you like dressing up as a vampire or the victim thereof, sounds like it's it'll be a fun dance evening. It's a dry event, and costumes are encouraged. And I will stop there.
Councillor Doudt.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I do have an announcement to make. Usually I don't, but today I have one. And I got this email from the regional district this morning, first thing, and it says, "Good afternoon, directors. We are pleased to announce that as of October 1st, 100% of our region's municipal solid waste is now being handled at the Resource Recovery Center. This milestone marks a significant step forward in our solid waste management plan and operational efficiency. With the transition, the previous agreement with Augusta Recyclers is concluded, and as you may recall from budget discussions, this contract represented a cost of approximately $570,000 per year. And these funds will now be reallocated to support the operation of our own facility. So that's good news. Lots of details always to figure out once it's in service, but it's good news that it's now collecting 100% of the municipal solid waste.
Councillor Southcott.
Nothing from me tonight, Your Worship. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I wanted to let folks know that the Powell River Therapeutic Riding Association is having their first barn ball fundraiser this Friday, tomorrow, from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Powell River Therapeutic Riding Arena, which is located near the fairgrounds, if people know where that is. So it's something new that they're trying, and they're going to have Dennis and the Menaces, food trucks, line dancing, door prizes, and more. So if you want to support Powell River Therapeutic Riding, who does a lot of work for folks who require therapy, and mainly children as well, that you could support them in that way. And finding out more information is on their Facebook page, or you can email prtra.wendy@gmail.com. Thanks.
Palm.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's with pleasure that I get to announce that a member of longstanding hockey in our community is in the gallery tonight. And I'll just say this in terms of hockey in our community, and that is bringing events to our community really helps out business, helps out our citizenry, with an event to go to at our complex and bring people there on a regular basis. And we tried to spur more of this when I was elected 16 years ago to try to get more events coming to town, but our volunteers at that time were, long in the tooth, burnt out, and it was hard to get more events coming this way. And so we took those funds that were allocated to that and created the Sport Hall of Fame so that we can all celebrate the history of sports in our community. Recently, Rick Hopper has gone down to the Lower Sunshine Coast. He was instrumental in bringing all kinds of youth tournaments to our town and filling hotels for a long time. And it's with great pleasure that we have Mr. Todd English in the gallery tonight. You know, he's a former Powell River Regal, and they're in our Sport Hall of Fame. And he's resurrecting the great legacy of that sporting team in our community, as we witnessed last spring when he brought a tournament to town and for several nights filled our hockey arena, our restaurants, our hotels, and provided great entertainment for our community that we could be proud of. So I would like to call upon Mr. English to come up to the podium and please explain, Mr. English, what you're working on with the Regals in short order.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and Jim, you're always too kind, but I appreciate it. We've been fortunate enough to have a facility here in our community where we can host these type of events, but it wouldn't have happened without 7 years ago building the Civic Arena, community built, and I'd like to announce that we are launching the Platinum 70 years of hockey here in Powell River and 70 years of ice skating, just 7 years of recreation, and it will be coming up next year with the help of Jamie and his staff, the 50 years of the rec center. Believe it or not, it's been a long time. Fortunately, we've had great success from the hockey community, and it was a great tournament last year. And we fortunately were invited to Jackson Hole, Wyoming to play hockey, which is a long ways away, and it was quite a journey. We had a great trip, and they invited us back. And I said, why don't you come to Powell River? I said, sure. So about a month later, he said, well, can I bring my high school team? And I said, well, sure, you can bring anybody. So can we bring the parents? And so it turns out on the October 18th and 19th is our home opener for the Regals. And the Jackson Hole, Wyoming high school team is playing the Brooks High School team, which is our U18 team. We've lined up the team to play the U18 team in Gibson's, Brooks, or the high school team. They're doing a doubleheader here and then playing North Shore Hollyburn Club on the way back. But what an event for Powell River. There'll be 70 people from Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I was telling Jim the story that I've had two experiences that private jets couldn't land in our airport. And apparently one of the family members is bringing a jet to Comox, and we're sending a helicopter over for them. And so it's quite a group of people. We'll be honored to have them here. We're trying to get as many signs up around the community and welcoming Jackson Hole, Wyoming, because it's a long ways and a great experience for our community and a good way to kick off our 70th year of hockey in Powell River. So thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. English. I'm going to close off the announcements by saying we have a very long agenda this evening. And when I was at the UC meetings, I talked to other mayors about, and we exchange ideas on how we can make meetings as efficiently as possible. And so they always recite the same thing. So we're going to ask when there are recommendations brought forward that council listen carefully, and if a question has been asked already, that we not repeat that question. And with any luck, we'll be out of here before midnight. So let's, excuse me, let's move to the adoption of the agenda, and I'm going to put a motion on the floor, and that is to move item 10.6 in front of 10.1. I'll see if there's a seconder to that motion. Thank you. Just in terms of discussion, I've had surgery this week, and I'm hoping to talk to this point, and I may have to depart afterwards, but it would be very helpful to me if it was earlier on the agenda rather than later. So we have a motion on the floor. See no further discussion. All in favor of the motion? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Move to the adoption of the minutes.
Sorry, I think we still have to adopt the agenda.
Thank you very much. Could we have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Councillor Seltcott.
Move adoption as amended.
Councillor Elliott, did you second that?
Yes.
Thank you. All in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you. So we'll move now to the adoption of the minutes. Councillor Isaacson.
I'll move that minutes of the special council meeting held September 26, 2024, and the minutes of the regular council meeting held September 12th, 2024, be adopted.
Seconded by Councillor Almeida. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is passed unanimously. We'll now move to delegations. 4.1. We have Ted Vasuti regarding BC Housing Project. And just remind everybody that there's 10 minutes allocated, and we would ask that the audience remain quiet so we can all listen carefully to the words that are being given to us. Thank you.
Evening, Council. Ted Vasuti, Hammond Street. I'd like to acknowledge that I live in the city of Paul River in the province of British Columbia in our great country, the one and only nation of Canada. I came here tonight to talk about the BC housing request for another housing project, but I've learned that this group has again gone against its citizens and made a decision that will cause harm and not listen to its taxpayers. I spoke to you, as did many other individuals the other day, about this subject. The people, taxpayers, concerned citizens of this community have either talked direct or sent emails to you and BC Housing to say we do not want this project to continue. I have a number of letters here from people that were denied their letters because the system says that they were late. I also have stats about BC Housing Community Relations inbox and received emails. This here, and I'll give it to you afterwards, is as of September 17, 2024, BC Housing Community Relations inbox has received 124 emails regarding the project. Of these, 4 were supportive, 44 were neutral, and 76 were negative. Separately, the City of Paul River has so far received 14 letters and emails regarding the project not copied to BC Housing. Of these, 1 was neutral and 13 were negative. Here is letters that were handed to me because they were not allowed and accepted by City Hall because of the time frame. These are all from residents of Paul River, and actually there's even residents from outside of the city in the regional district. I can hand these to you afterwards and you can read through them. These are all letters that we've been asking for to be sent in. I am aware that the city had received monies from the government regarding erecting buildings in our community. That does not make it right. Last Tuesday, you heard very significant and damaging information from Save Our Streets pertaining to how communities are afraid of BC housing units and how the people involved in these homes are harming our homes, citizens, businesses, and the city we live in. Rick Craig spoke to council on Tuesday about this housing project. This report requested that things be put on hold until the proper engagement, policies, management be recognized and implemented. Did council even listen to Mr. Craig or hear him? The Westview Ratepayer Society is a committed group of taxpayers looking to make Paul River a better place, but that does not seem to matter to this group. You've had business owners come in front of you and they showed videos of damage being done. That does not matter to this group. Since that day, council has once again gone against their oath of office. This oath says that members are to perform their duties in a way that does not harm, cause fear, or cause dissension amongst its citizens, is to listen to the citizens and make better. Why is this council so willing to bring more harm to the city? Why is this council so willing to bring more harm to the citizens? Why is this council so willing to bring more harm to city businesses and their employees? Why is this council so willing to be the possible cause of city businesses that pay taxes to close up and leave? It is not too late for this council to do the right thing and stop the decision made regarding building another housing unit. I thank you for your time. I am an extremely concerned citizen of Powell River.
Do we have any clarifying questions for Mr. Tizzuti? Thank you very much for your presentation.
To Councillor Palm, and
It should go to the clerk.
you can read them or whatever. Thank you.
Our next allegation is Brianne Lumley. Do you just make sure you lower the mic so we can hear you?
Sorry. Sorry for the delay, Council. Ms. Lumley just asked me if I could read this for her. She's having a very difficult day for personal reasons. I hope this email finds you well. I am writing to express urgent concerns about the current state of supportive housing and addiction services in our city. Below, I outline key issues that require immediate attention, along with the recommendations for improvement. Key issues. 1, the city's stance on the housing's first model. The city's reluctance to fully embrace the housing first model, which prioritizes stable housing as the initial step in addressing addiction, has raised concerns. Stable housing is a critical foundation for successful recovery and social integration. A lack of support for this model could hinder the effectiveness of efforts to combat addiction. 2, challenges in supportive housing and addiction services, unclear policies and inconsistent communication with residents have led to confusion and mismanagement of services. Access to essential services such as kitchen facilities and appropriate living conditions is frequently complicated by arbitrary regulations. 3, why the current model isn't working. Supportive housing as it currently operates, often fails to provide the comprehensive services residents need for long-term recovery. Mental health, addiction service support, and employment services are either fragmented or absent, resulting in a lack of substantial progress for residents. 4, institutional-like operations. Many supportive housing models function like institutions, with rigid rules that create an atmosphere of control rather than support. Residents fear losing their homes or services if they advocate for themselves, trapping them in a cycle of dependency and unmet needs. 5, concerns about safe supply. While safe supply initiatives are meant to reduce harm, they fail to address the root cause of addiction. A more holistic approach is required, focusing on stable housing, comprehensive mental health services, and rehabilitation rather than just providing substances to reduce immediate harm. 6, $10 billion plan. The $10 billion homelessness and housing plan is a significant investment. However, concerns remain about this implementation. For it to be effective, the plan must align with the Housing First model and provide holistic support services that address addiction, mental health, and employment. 7, rising crime and taxpayer impact. Crime rates are increasing in areas surrounding supportive housing complexes, raising safety concerns for residents and the broader community. Taxpayers are also feeling the financial strain due to rising crime and the inefficiency of current strategies. 8, neglect of youth in supportive services. Youth affected by homelessness and addiction are frequently overlooked in current housing and addiction services. There is urgent need for targeted interventions, including mental health services, education, and job training to support these young people. Requests for immediate action. 1, reconsider support for the new building. We urge the city to reconsider supporting the proposed new building until a thorough review of its impact and effectiveness is completed. 2, explore alternative agencies. The city should explore partnering with alternative agencies that have a proven track record of addressing homelessness and addiction hostility.
Holistically.
Can't say the word. Holistically. 3, policy review. We request an urgent review of the city's policies regarding the Housing First model and the practices currently employed in supportive housing. 4, transparency and communication. BC Housing and related agencies must implement transparent and accessible communication channels with residents, ensuring they are kept informed of changes and can advocate for their needs without fear of losing support. 5, effective use of funds. Ensure that the $10 billion plan is implemented effectively, supporting comprehensive housing and addiction services that address root causes rather than temporary solutions. 6, address crime and safety concerns. Implement strategies to mitigate rising crime rates in supportive housing areas and address the financial burden on taxpayers. 7, support youth. Develop and fund targeted programs to address the unique challenges faced by youth in homelessness and addiction situations. 8, reform institutional practices. Reform supportive housing practices to empower residents, encouraging them to advocate for their needs without fear of losing essential support. In conclusion, let's see. Rand, did you want the conclusion? That was it? Okay. This is from Rand Lumley, and she's here with me if you would like to ask any questions.
Thank you. Are there any clarifying questions for Brianne Lumley? None. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Council.
Our next delegation is Mike Haddon.
Hi, my name is Mike Hatton. I'm an alcoholic. Dry one, but an alcoholic. I've done 30-odd 12-step jobs on other people. And I think if you really want to get dry, if you really want to get clean, you have to work at it. If you build buildings for people to go into, having met an awful lot of alcoholics and addicts, they will take it from you. And that's what they're doing now. When I drive past to go home and I see the fire trucks and the ambulances sitting outside the place picking people up, I don't know if they're dead or alive. It's not my problem. I got to tell you, they're going to do it. If you attempt to build another one, I guarantee the problems that he was just talking about are going to go up twofold at least. Because I've seen them in the bushes. Hey, they're not. If you want to get well, you have to work at it. Can't get something for nothing. That's exactly what you're giving them. Something for nothing. Got to stop it. Seriously. I don't know what it is. It's like, for instance, when somebody wants to build something like this, I haven't seen nothing in the paper. I don't read the thing half the time for the simple reason the Peak is as boring as it gets. The other one is my wife reads it because it's an enjoyable, fluffy little magazine. I don't know where your adverts are. Never seen them.
I have privilege, just if you could speak into the mic.
Thank you. I don't know where your adverts come from or go to, but I never get to see anything. Nobody's asked me, can I dip my hand into your wallet? All I see is people dipping their hand into my wallet. It's unfair. You guys were hired to, this is the city of Powell River has a mayor. And in that, he has councilors. And you guys are supposed to talk about this stuff and figure out how we're going to do this. How are we going to get the money from these guys to do it? You don't just go ahead and do it. That's what you've been doing. You got to stop this stuff. That's about it. I could carry on, but it's redundant because everything I keep telling you is a fact. I'm a redneck from the Yukon, and trust me, I don't mince words. My words are straight up. I don't lie, cheat, or steal. So it's time for you guys to play the game a bit better. I had a letter from the BC housing. It said, my neighbor. Wow. Neighbors like that, I don't need. I really don't.
Thank you, Mr.
Seriously, I don't like somebody coming along. It's such a rotten looking letter that 90% of the people that would get it in their mail would pick it up and look at it and go and fire it in the garbage because it doesn't look right. Looks like a typical piece of stuff somebody's trying to sell. I actually opened it up foolishly because I got a funny feeling you guys are not going to do anything about this problem. You're going along with the flow. Somebody from the Victoria, that other character that we've got running the country, he bought a pipeline for $4.3.
I'm just going to interrupt for a minute.
Sorry?
I'm just going to interrupt. Could the audience please be respectful to Mr. Haddon?
Sorry?
Well, no, I'm talking to the audience, Mr. Haddon, just for a second. You could be responsible and keep your comments. You can meet with them afterwards. You can do whatever you want, but while he's presenting, if you would keep quiet, please. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Haddon. You have 5 minutes left if you need it.
He bought a pipeline for $4.3 billion and proceeded to spend another, I don't know actually how much it was. It was around $30 billion to get it working. I don't even know if it's pumping anything right now. And this is the same guy that wants us to drive electric cars. Something's wrong here. Am I on the wrong planet or are you guys on the wrong planet? I have to tell you that you have to earn respect. You don't buy it. You can't find it in any store, any garage, any place, anyhow. You can't go to Amazon, pick up respect. You have to earn it. And you can only earn it if you're truthful and you go ahead and do the stuff that you're supposed to do. You have a charter that you guys are supposed to live by. You're here for me and them. Seriously. You have to do something and stop stealing money out of people's pockets without at least some idea of what's the right thing to do. Ask us. Don't just go ahead and do it or listen to some idiot in Victoria telling you because he's peeling off billions of dollars, our money, okay, to build something like this thing that you built up there that doesn't work. I've watched it. I've seen the trucks pick up people at that place because it's an easy place. It's warm and cozy. They get 3 squares a day. I'd love to go to jail. Even nice get better than I do. I'm 85, man. I have to look after myself and my wife. Are you guys going to look after me? You should be, because that's what the charter told you in the first place, what you're supposed to do. Don't be afraid to do it. You'll gain my respect. It's got to be worth something. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haddon. Any? Councillor Palm.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Lumley,
Sorry?
you keep pointing and you were looking at me quite a bit and you were pointing your finger. I just want to know, I want you to know where I come from.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you right now.
Okay.
So you come from the Yukon.
Right.
I come from the wrong side of the tracks growing up in a place called Harewood in Nanaimo. My father was a longshoreman, sir. He also had the similar problem that you do. He was an
What
alcoholic.
problem do I have?
Well, you told me you were an alcoholic.
Oh,
Well, my father had the same problem, sir.
that's the reason I was pointing.
Oh,
I pointed at him.
I didn't think you.
And I don't have any reason to be nasty about anybody.
Can you listen to me for a second?
Yes.
I just want you to know, Mr. Lumley, that I agree with a lot of your comments that you've made here tonight.
Right?
And I'm sure there's a lot of the folks that are in the crowd tonight agreeing with a lot of the comments that you have made. And it's very important that we deal with this issue in our community. We're not here to steal from.
And Councillor Palm,
Yes.
I'm just going to interrupt. Do you have a question?
I have a question, Mr. Lumley.
Thank you. It's actually Mr. Haddon.
Oh, sorry,
Okay.
sorry. Mr. Hatton.
Hey, you work.
Yeah, so, sir, you have heard, or did you attend the consultation that was put on by BC Housing?
Yes, I did. I didn't know about it till the day before.
Oh, you didn't know about it. I'm glad to hear that you were able to get in the door because I, as a counselor, could not when I arrived. Luckily, at the end, when things calmed down, I was able to get in.
Yeah.
But I just want you to know, from my perspective and what I do, I listen to all the facts and I'll be making my decision based on listening to the citizens of this community.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. So once again, I'm going to ask that there's no clapping, no jeering. There's just respectful listening. And we may finish by midnight, and we may have learned something from each other by that time. So we're going to move to item 5, which is correspondence. We have 3 correspondence received. How would council like to proceed? Councillor Isaacson.
We have 5 items on the agenda now, so you may need to refresh your screen. I wanted to quickly address items 5.2 and 5.4, which are related to permissive tax exemptions. I've been struggling a lot with trying to think of what a possible solution is to some of the challenges we have in our community with permissive tax exemptions. And I've been working on an amendment to the bylaws that are here in the afternoon or later on in the agenda, because I hear the need for council to support affordable housing in this community. And if we look to Gibson's in the south, where they are focusing their permissive tax exemptions on housing, I think I think we should take a cue from that, given that affordable housing is such a need in our community. And so some of the seniors housing and et cetera, that's offered by some of these organizations, it's really valuable to send a message to organizations like that by council saying we want more of this type of housing, like Kiwanis Village or like Sunset Homes, et cetera. Okay, thank you. Anyways, and so I'll make a motion when the time comes, and that's, I guess, how we'll decide whether or not there's appetite for my amendment. And I won't make it now because we're not at that portion of the agenda, but I just wanted to really acknowledge that when the two organizations that wrote us as it relates to permissive tax exemptions and affordable housing organizations just are so, their financial matters are so different from many other service providing organizations that don't have the same level of infrastructure. So for example, if a funder was looking at the city of Powell River and looking at our reserve fundings and think, oh, they've got reserve funds, they've got lots of cash on hand, they don't need grants from the federal government. And we would say, well, no, those reserve funds are us planning responsibly for the future. And I think when we assess the financial need of, in particular, affordable housing organizations, we miss some of that, the fact that planning for care for those housing societies, it requires some planning and some saving, and that means they're going to have cash on hand that needs to be dedicated to that in the future. So at the last meeting, I did suggest there's 3 potential ways to address this need for making sure we indicate to affordable housing organizations that we want more of that and we'll support them in that. One of them being to take the total ask and divide it so that we still meet our $400,000 cap. And that might mean, say, funding every organization to, I'm making a number up here, but say 76% of their permissive tax exemption ask. And another option would be to assess each applicant one at a time. And a third could be, which is probably what I will propose as an amendment to the draft, is to take the gap that we have up to 400,000 and apply it to some more affordable housing so that we maximize our permissive tax exemption. So I want to thank the 2 organizations that wrote in particular, Mr. Hargrave, because his organization is not applying for a tax exemption this year, given that they were denied last year, but advocating for council support for affordable housing. I think it's something that we need to look at seriously. I know that we have directed staff to do a review or to get a review conducted of our permissive tax exemption and other community support policies, and we haven't gotten there yet. And therefore, I'm not quite satisfied with how we're doing things, and I'm hoping we can get a little bit better once we get to our bylaws today. And so I will ask the chair, once it comes time to do first reading, that I have the opportunity to make an amendment.
Councillor Doubt.
Yeah, and I've read all 5 of the emails and correspondence, and I move that we receive them for information. There'll be plenty of time on the agenda later to talk about the permissive tax exemption bylaws.
We have a seconder.
There's a motion.
Comment I'd like to make.
Yes, Councillor Doubt. Councillor Palm.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I hear what Councillor Isaacson is advocating, and I just want to state for the record that we dealt with this item, permissive tax exemptions. I'm looking at my.
I know, they can't hear you, hon.
So I'm going to start one more time. And that is, I hear what Councillor Isaacson is saying and advocating for various nonprofit organizations getting support for permissive tax exemption. But one point that needs to be made when we examine the topic is that staff did a great job of the criteria that was outlined and why certain organizations were accepted and why certain organizations were left off the sheet. And one of the criteria that you have to take into consideration when you're dealing with the housing is that a lot of this housing that's in place was government funded. So I just wanted to state that for the record, and that factors into the decisions that we made previous to tonight. And Your Worship, if I may, I have to make reference to item 5.3. And that is the letter from Miss Teal Maydell regarding the proposed BC housing project. I have, in my many years on this bench, seen a lot of letters. I used to work with Teal's mother as a teacher when I first came to town, who was teaching English at Ocean View Middle School way back when. She was an outstanding teacher. She taught English. And I guess it must have rubbed off on Teal, because this letter is outstanding, the way it's written, clear, concise, and to the point. And I just want to emphasize just a couple of the things that Teal has written, because the original letter came to me, not to all of council. And the public may not have seen this prior to tonight, but Teal makes the point, and she works in this industry for the federal government. She's very knowledgeable, and her letter is outstanding. And in bold print, she writes, "I find it incomprehensible that without an external, objective, and thorough evaluation of the existing house on Joyce, that another just housing facility is being proposed." I think I've heard that numerous times from the public. And I'm not going to go over all the response and point form concerns, because those have been stated time after time, and there are a lot of them. And we could just keep building that list. But council, I plead you, take a good read, word for word, on Teal's letter, because it strictly explains the position we're in on a net second housing endeavor. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. I'm now going to move to 5.5, which is proclamation for Foster. Yes, Councillor Doubt.
Are we going to vote on the motion to receive the correspondence, Mr. Mayor?
Isn't seconded.
I had tried, but there seemed to be a disinterest. Let's try again. Councillor Doubt has put forward a motion, seconded by Councillor Almeida. Right now, all in favor? Thank you very much. So we'll move now to 5.5, the proclamation. So whereas the City of Powell River wishes to recognize the warmth, compassion, and dedication of Powell River's foster families that care for children who are temporarily unable to live with their own families. And whereas foster families are an integral and valued part of a team that helps children return to their families, live with extended family, or make the transition to an adoptive family. And whereas Indigenous foster families support Indigenous children and youth to learn about and practice their Indigenous traditions, customs, and language, and to belong to their Indigenous community. And whereas foster families from diverse cultural backgrounds support all children and youth to maintain their cultural heritage, learn about and practice their cultural traditions, customs, and language, and belong to their community. And whereas fostering is a community responsibility that provides opportunities for all community members to contribute to the support of children and youth. Therefore, I, Mayor Ron Wasno, proclaim October the 24th as Foster Family Month in the City of Powell River. We'll now move to 6, which is committee reports. We have the Committee of the Whole meeting held September 10th, 2024. would the chair like to comment on those minutes?
Yes, Your Worship, this is minutes of this meeting is on our agenda website. And I'm not going to belabor the point because we have a long agenda tonight. You can all reference it and look it up and read it word for word. So I would just simply say, Your Worship, we should accept the minutes as is unless there's an objection.
The agreement that we accept them?
We've already accepted them at Committee of the Whole.
6.2 is the Harbor User Advisory Committee meeting held July 3rd. Any further comments on that for the public?
Yes, Your Worship, I just want to say the Harbor Committee is a group of citizens that have been put together to look at various aspects and of our harbor and how it operates. We met on July 3rd before the summer break and came up with a survey for all boat users or boat owners that were using our harbor from various points that came here. And we will be doing another survey for all local users coming up in the next year. This committee is working hard, and those minutes are also available on our website for reading. But I just want to thank staff and our committee members for the fine work they're doing, and hopefully, and in short order, having our harbor run and generating funds for our community and running at top speed. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. We'll now move to 7, which is committee recommendations. 7.1, development permit 383, Director of Planning Services.
Good evening, Council. I'm going to just walk you through this really quickly. It was 2 weeks ago that staff presented Development Variance Permit 282 and Development Permit 383, both associated with proposed development at 5201 Manson Avenue. Development Variance Permit 282 proposes to vary the maximum building height of a principal building in the RM1 compact residential zone from 8.5 meters to 9.3 meters above average grade. 2 weeks ago, Council directed staff to issue notice about the variance. Staff have done that. Tonight, we're back here looking for Council to issue Development Variance Permit 282, as well as Development Permit 383, which is to construct the 60 units that is being proposed in terms of that property.
Yes, Councillor Elliott and then Councillor Palm.
I move that Council issue Development Variance Permit 282 that proposes to vary the maximum building height of a principal building in the RM1 zone as defined in City of Powell River Zoning Bylaw 2100/2006 from 8.5 meters to 9.3 meters.
Seconded by Councillor Isaacson. Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion is passed unanimously. Thank you. Excuse me. We now move to item 8, which
Would you like me to read the second motion, Your Worship?
I didn't see the second one. Yes, please.
I move that Council issue Development Permit 383 to facilitate a 60-unit townhouse development on an unaddressed and vacant lot adjacent to 5201 Manson Avenue, legal described as Lot B, District Lot 5542, Plan 5389, subject to payment of a landscape security deposit to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning Services.
Seconded by Councillor Isaacson. Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion is passed unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Elliott.
Would you like me to read the Rising report?
I would.
Thank you, Your Worship. On October 8th, 2024, in a closed meeting, the following motion was passed. That staff be directed to issue the letter attached that accepts, in principle, the Cothette Regional Hospital District Board's conditional consent as outlined in their August 8th, 2024 letter in response to the city's request of the permanent closure and highway dedication removal of the undeveloped portion of Complex Way to permit the development of a second supportive housing facility, and commits the city to the development of a formal agreement that incorporates the conditions of the Cothette Regional Hospital District Board's consent following receipt of a third reading of the City of Powell River permanent closure and removal of highway dedication bylaw 2760/2024 and before council considers adoption.
Thank you.
Can I comment? So I think people were worried that this means that the decisions on today's agenda were made already, and that is not the case. In order for us to proceed to making decisions, we had to consider this, whether this piece whether the terms from the Cathette Hospital District were acceptable to us, should we want to move forward with the other decisions. And so this decision reflects that we accept the terms of the Cathette Hospital District, and so that we can move forward with our public discussion on whether the city would like to make decisions on this today or not. And so I just wanted to alleviate people's concerns that decisions were made, because they are not. This is about whether the terms from the Cathette Hospital District were acceptable to us or not, so that we could move into public with this Risen report and discuss matters that we do need to decide on. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to 8.2, which is report from municipal directors of the Cathette Regional District. Would Councillor Doubt?
I would like to. That was the September 25th meeting of the Regional District Board, and Councillor Elliott, unfortunately, was really sick that day and unable to attend, and Councillor Isaacson attended in her place. We went through a bunch of business that day. We received interim financial statements, mid-year financial statements from the finance staff. We made a number of resolutions regarding the Cathette Historical Museum and Archives Association service contract agreement amendments. I won't go into all three of them, but there was a number of them updating that, making sure they would have funding going forward, provided some funding for shelves to keep all the archives on, and to make sure that they were going to be having a financial statements prepared and reviewed on an external qualified accountant. And we did a funding agreement with the Powell River Academy of Music to keep them funded going forward a few years, and clarified a number of things. Lund Waterworks District, dam funding and risk, and that's an important one to anybody who lives around Lund. And the motion was that the board pause conversion of the Lund Waterworks District to QRD control and direct staff to approach Municipal Affairs and Lund Waterworks District to promote the hiring of a qualified professional to immediately assess the Tulin Dam, etc. And that's the result of a letter we got from the provincial government saying that they were concerned about the safety of the dam in case there's significant flooding. Talked about an agreement renewal request for tourism funding river. I'm going to try that again. Talked about a funding agreement renewal request for tourism Powell River. And had an update on the resource recovery financing status. Now, the Resource Recovery Center has had an excess expense over what it was done there before. The report to the board was to have a $2.5 million increase in borrowing, which would be paid for by taxes. I made an alternate resolution to that, but the committee recommend the board that the board direct staff to allocate 1.4 million of the Community Works Fund towards completion of the Resource Recovery Center, and that the rest of the borrowing be 1.1 million, which would be paid for by taxpayers. There was a discussion about that. It was moved and seconded, and the board voted to postpone that decision. It was looking like it was going to be a very close vote with all of the regional area representatives opposed to that idea. So then postponed. There will be a discussion at an upcoming board meeting, the end of this month, I guess, to discuss what will happen with that. And we talked about a volunteer fire department service review, which is something that regional districts can do on their service whenever a director wants to do, to look at and examine the service that's being provided. And this one would be for all of the fire departments provided by regional district. So that's what I want to report on. I don't know if Councillor Isaacson wants to add anything.
I think you did a great job.
Thank you, Councillor Doudt. We'll now move to bylaws.
Your Worship, I just have one quick question.
Yeah, yes, Councillor Palm.
I know I've asked this question before, but I don't know if I'm going to get the same answer or not. And that is, Councillor Doudt, you referenced the resource center this evening, and you referenced another $1.4 million for more funding towards the venture. And I believe the Powell River Peak has reported on how much the regional district cost is associated with that resource recovery center. But as of yet, the city and the council, I believe, because I'm one of them, has not received a financial report on how much the city will be billed for that recovery center. Is that going to be forthcoming in the near future, or is that something that doesn't get discussed?
The Resource Recovery Center is a project of the Cassette Regional District. If you'd like a full accounting of the Resource Recovery Center project, you will get that from the Regional District. That's where that is. The Regional District is paying the cost of it. It's a Regional District service, a Regional District fund. The contribution that taxpayers within the city make is clear every year when we do the tax determinations and do the annual reports. And those annual reports have come every year to council. You've looked at them, you've read them, you've asked the questions. That's where you get your information.
Your Worship, I just have to reply by saying I've never seen any final numbers, so I'm looking forward to seeing those down the road. Thank you very much.
Okay. We'll now move to item 10.6, which is the draft bylaw 2760. And I would like to start by posing a motion to move to defer this item until after the first council meeting in November. And if there's a seconder, I will explain why. Thank you, Councillor Elliott. My reasons are two-fourth. First of all, we have heard consistently from our Director of Planning that we have a significant shortage in staff relative to the workload that the director and his planning staff have. In addition, we've lost a senior planner, and that's created more of a challenge in order to meet some very important issues that come forth from developers, companies and individuals that wanted to build new housing in Powell River, as well as other minor adjustments that homeowners want to make. The second reason to defer this item is that we are in the middle of a provincial election. And I just want to give a brief description of what this means to a provincial government. So after the election, we will have a new provincial cabinet. We don't know who's going to be in that cabinet, what their standings are. We're also going to have a new minister of BC Housing. And that cabinet is going to be making strategic decisions, just like our council made strategic decisions. So at this point, there is no way of knowing whether or not the new government is going to support the initiatives of BC Housing. And so why risk utilizing the staff that we have in planning for something which may not come to fruition. So that's the basis for which I'm asking for deferment. Once a new government is in place in Victoria, we will have an opportunity, especially in that we will now have a new MLA who can represent and get information from us. And when we ask those questions, we'll be in a much better position to determine when this item, if it should be brought back, is brought back. Thank you. So I'll open for discussion. Councillor Southcott.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I was going to make a comment, as one or two of my colleagues here at this table did, in receipt of correspondence. And also because when I was chairing the meeting on Tuesday, I said that I expected that our community would hear a statement of where we stood on the broad issue that is targeted by this very preliminary recommendation in this motion. And that is it's one step in a multi-step process. Originally, what I would have done is support this because it is very preliminary and it doesn't represent any final decision whatsoever. Something has changed my mind on that. Tonight, Brianne Lumley's presentation, the letter from Teal Maydell, and the presentation from Lorraine Emmons on Tuesday, particularly align with my past experience, which includes 12 years of working with the population, the kind of population that is of concern in this, the issue of a new housing development. Back then, when I worked in downtown Vancouver, there was an approach adopted by then Mayor Larry Campbell called the 4 Pillars approach. And those 4 pillars included 2 distinct ones, treatment and recovery, and another distinct element of that was harm reduction. Since that time, treatment and recovery has been, to my observation, and I only retired from the ambulance service where I had my experience downtown in Vancouver and here 5 years ago. Harm reduction has basically enveloped treatment and recovery. What I've seen is that the 2 populations, people interested in those 2 different paths, life paths, are mutually exclusive. They don't work together. And when you try to put them together, which essentially is what has happened over the past few years, one of those populations is victimized. And I think this is was addressed in Lorraine's presentation and also was addressed very articulately in Teal Maydell's. Both of these people are expert subject matter experts. And I suspect Brianne Lumley is as well. I also respect Mr. Hatton's testimony to us. And I also reflect that my own family has that same experience. There have been deaths in my family due to addictions. So I support your motion tonight, Mayor, because I don't think that the delay is going to cause significant disruption. I have to say, I emphatically support housing, but I cannot support the siloed approach between Vancouver Coastal and BC Housing that I see has resulted in the limited successes that LIFT has had here. They've been put into...
All right, please.
They've been put in a situation where they've done exemplary work within a context that what I see as necessary in our society and in our community is nigh on impossible. And I've believed that since way back, and I've tried to convince myself for years now that the new paradigm was possible. And particularly after these presentations on Tuesday and today, it encourages me to be true to my own belief. And I have to be assured that there is a reasonable possibility of success before I could support moving forward. So it's a bit of a wordy explanation as to my position, but without a whole lot of other convincing, that is the position I'm going to take going forward. And so I support your motion, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm also in support of the motion, and I want to state my reasons. First of all, I want to thank those people who have come and talked to me directly, and we've had those conversations. Brianne, Carolyn Jackson, Mark, a number of other people in the community. I really appreciated those conversations. Secondly, I am absolutely in favor of housing people. I don't think people should be out on the streets in the cold winter, and this in no way reflects that I think that people should not have housing, because I do. I don't want to say no to housing, but I can't say yes. I'm not prepared to say yes yet. I have a number of reasons. Consultation with our community has not helped the community understand the difference between what is being proposed and what is currently existing. And I, quite frankly, don't entirely understand either. And so that means the consultation isn't finished. I think that we need to pause moving forward here at the city level until BC Housing is able to participate in more and better community consultations so the community can feel involved in coming up with these solutions that we need. Currently in our community, we have some low barrier housing that houses people that don't have a lot of restrictions on it. It's distressful for folks who really need a different type of housing, and they really need to be having more than one type of housing in our community so that people have the ability to tier up. So we need to house people, we need to do harm reduction, but we also need to give them a direct path to a better life. And the housing to support that better life is not existing in this plan. I have no idea how we get there, but I think there's an opportunity to use the money that BC Housing wants to build this building with to create the type of housing our community needs to tier up to recovery. I wanted to also assure the community, I have 5 kids, 5 grandkids, all in this community. I am not separate from you, I am one of you. I care and love in this community just as everybody else does. I don't know where people got the idea that we had made our decisions already, because that's what we're doing here today, and that's what this conversation is about. I would like to see a conversation that lands a comprehensive plan that allows for different stages of housing and different types of housing for people to run a path along to recovery. And I think that's what Brianne means by a housing first model, is not just here, it's from here to here. And if we're going to be building another building in our community, it should be addressing the gaps that we don't have now. And I want to make sure that's what we're doing. Maybe that's what we're doing. I don't know for sure. And I'd like us, the whole community, to have a little bit of confidence in that. So by deferring and not moving forward with this decision, we are not saying no at this point in time, and it leaves the door open for further conversation, because shutting the conversation down also doesn't help us. Because we do have unhoused people, we do have people with needs that are not being met. And in order to get there, we need to encourage BC Housing to come and talk to us and figure this out with us. And that's what I'm trying to do with this decision. Thank you.
Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe that there needs to be more work and time spent on this proposal, but to me, where that happens is it doesn't necessarily have to be about deferring tonight. So when it comes to the election, obviously we have a government right now that whose mandate supports supportive housing, but the other possible government in their platform has talked about ending tent cities by getting people into supportive housing. So I think no matter what the future holds, we're going to have supportive housing. The model may be different, but supporting housing is, I believe, in the future. And I also want to talk a little bit in terms of to the question of delaying. As Councillor Elliott shared, this is a process. So the possibility tonight in front of council is to decide whether or not to give some bylaws associated with this project first through third reading. So that gets us, in order for anything to be adopted, we need to give it 3 readings and then adoption. So first through third could happen at this meeting. Adoption would have to happen at a future meeting. And then in further to that, we would have to enter into an agreement with BC Housing. So no final decision would get made tonight, and the deferral definitely would not allow for a final decision. Where I think a bit more work needs to be done is with BC Housing. I don't feel the level of information provided yet to the community has answered a lot of the questions that exist. And I am, because of the, similar to Councillor Elliott, because of the information that's been provided, I am unclear on a couple of things that this and how it will address what the community needs. I want to be clear that I am very supportive of supportive housing. I believe we need housing in all variety of models in this community, including more supportive housing. But I think because BC Housing is in a position of not being able to do any public engagement because of the writ being dropped and the election happening, we can't do that more of that work with BC Housing and be in more conversation with them right now. So to me, where the pause or work that needs to be done is with BC Housing, and that would generally, that could happen now, or that could happen after the road dedication issues were addressed. So to me, it's like kind of here nor there. More work needs to be done, but I would like to move this along so that we can have frank discussions with BC Housing, and if we show them that we're serious about supporting people in our community, but we need it to be able to meet our community needs. I think that the housing or the road dedication questions that are in front of us tonight would be better to be answered first, so that they have some security that there is support generally, but then we can negotiate terms and get more clarity, have more clarity with the community as well as with council. So I'm leaning towards not supporting the deferral motion, but I do acknowledge that more work between us and BC Housing and the community at large needs to happen.
Councillor Doat.
I'm going to start out by pointing out, as Councillor Isaacson just did, that we're not talking about spending $10 million or $30 billion or any money from the city of Powell River. What we're talking about with this motion is to approve removing a highway dedication from a piece of land and doing the first 3 steps towards rezoning the property. Not an insurmountable amount of work for the planning department, but the first step in going along to producing some supportive housing. I want to talk about the Westview ratepayers proposal. I met with Rick Craig, and we talked about it. I think we spent about an hour or some talking about it. And I told him what I thought about it then, and I'm talking about it now. I'm going to respond kind of in order to the Westview ratepayers concept. And I want to say that I agree that supporting housing for the homeless is important to the community, and that the positive impacts of housing should be maximized and the negative impacts minimized. As to his second group of items, I do not agree that we should delay making a decision on land use. I think we should move it forward now while we all work with BC Housing to maximize the benefits and minimize the negatives of any proposal. As I think I've got the floor right now. I'd like to speak. As for the Westview ratepayers' proposed conditions for a detailed performance management plan, a community impacts management plan, an overall strategy, including plans for new and existing supportive housing, complex care, and shelter services. The last three of these are included in BC Housing's current new plan, as well as transitional housing. We can and should do more as well. We need housing that people can afford, and we need significant improvement in all kinds of mental health and addictions treatment and mitigation. As a council member, I'm working on that, and so are many others in the community. All of this will require that the provincial government provide adequate funding for staffing and operations. All of these conditions can be met while we move forward by working together with each other and with BC Housing to address these valid concerns. Clear my screen a little bit here. The Community Advisory Committee for the existing supportive housing on Joyce Street continues to meet and is doing a detailed examination of its processes. I'm a member of that committee, as are members of the Westview ratepayers. My understanding of the original intent for this committee is to be a liaison between the residents of the building, the operators, and nearby residents. LIFT and others have been working to create a homelessness task force, which would include many more groups and a wider mandate. In my opinion, that would be a better solution than trying to expand the CIC that we now have, and that we can do that without delaying tonight's decisions. Concerns put forward in the part 3 of the Westview ratepayers proposal cannot be controlled by the city. But moving forward, we can form a positive relationship with all of the organizations that do control these decisions, like Vancouver Coastal Health, like BC Buildings, and anyone else, Vancouver Coastal Health. I think I mentioned them. I want to respond to some of the statements and letters that Council has received. After the Westview ratepayers had a meeting on the supportive housing question, most of the letters compared very similar or approximately the same statements. I agree with those who say that the most important step to help a homeless person improve their life is to first provide housing. Everything else builds on that. Homelessness has not increased in Powell River because of the presence of supportive housing. It has increased due to rising costs and declining incomes. Statistics Canada shows a 21% decline in purchasing power from 2021 to right now to women who have children who are under 25 years of age. That's what is putting people on the streets, is the ability no longer to afford housing that they once could afford. If we don't move forward, there will not be more homeless people on the streets of Powell River. There will be fewer if we move forward. No one is being bussed in to take advantage of supportive housing. Most of the residents have been in Powell River for 10 years or more. Residents of supportive housing are not responsible for all of the crime in our town, as some would have you believe. Turning down housing will not, in my opinion, reduce crime. Finally, people who are homeless and people who are residents of supportive housing are members of our community and deserve to be considered equally by council with taxpayers when we make decisions for all of those residents, including but not exclusively for taxpayers. I must say that I was encouraged by the many letters supporting the new projects by sharing their personal experiences and contribution that proper housing has made to their lives. So I'm opposed to this motion to postpone. I think we will be doing better if we move forward in a small way to provide zoning that may someday turn into supportive housing. And I worry about what will happen if we don't move forward, because the problem will not go away.
Any further discussions before Councillor Armida?
Thank you, Mayor.
Could we please have quiet?
I was thinking through, listening to my fellow colleagues, trying to figure out what I wanted to share, and I think I share some of the same thoughts as both Councillor Isaacson and Councillor Elliott. I don't feel a deferment would actually, I mean, kind of indifferent in some ways, but I don't feel like today is necessarily the spot for the deferment if we were to delay a decision. As Councillor Isaacson pointed out, this is a two-step process. What's on our agenda today is just the first 3 readings, and in order to become finalized, it still needs adoption. And I agree with Councillor Elliott that further conversation with BC Housing and VCH is needed for anything to move forward in any ways regarding housing. I think the majority of letters that we've received from the community have shared a desire to help those in need, but to make sure it's done well and done right. And that's a lot of what I got from many of those letters. So I don't think deferring today really makes an impact. I'd rather say get the first 3 readings done, and I'm not opposed to deferring the adoption, whether it's in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks, as we then tell BC Housing, hey, we've got the T's crossed and the I's dotted, but we haven't stamped it yet, and we want to talk a little bit more. And I think that opens up the door to that conversation a little bit better. So in that case, I'd rather not defer today, but I'm open to that deferment discussion down the road before adoption comes up.
Great. We have a motion on the floor that I've put forward to defer. Councillor Palm.
Yes, Your Worship, I just want to make a couple of comments. First of all, I want to say that I agree with many of the comments that were bravely stated by Councillor Southcott. I agree with his many reasons that for delay, it was brave for him to say a lot of those items and issues and reasons. So I applaud him for doing that, because he's definitely changed his mind from where he once was. Because he's listening to the people. He's listening to what's been written in the well-written letters. And the problem is where we are now is, as have been stated in numerous letters, providing a bed is not the solution. We need far more help for those addicted. And all the chaos this is causing, both to those that are addicted, living in that 40-bed facility that I've heard about, and the surrounding neighborhood and businesses and greater community, they all have great weight, and we need to listen to all. So I'm hoping that we vote for a delay until this election passes and we then have a clear path forward, instead of passing something piecemeal tonight and muddying the water for a future discussion. Because we've heard from the people. And I was wrong. I just have to correct myself from Tuesday when I stated, after talking to the mayor on the phone, that he received letters of non-support from 342 residents. Well, I'm sorry. It was only 242. 94% of those were opposed, and only 6% were in support. The numbers speak for themselves. The emails speak for themselves. The citizens speak for themselves far beyond the consultation that has been provided them. I don't understand how council tonight can ignore all of the information they've received. So I wholly support the mayor's motion to delay which is the right thing to do tonight,
So,
so we can get over this hump. Thank you, Your Worship.
so we have the motion. We've had full discussion. I'm going to call the motion. All in favor? Opposed? The motion passes 4-3. Thank you. Now move to bylaw 10.1.
Might want to recess.
Oh, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Okay? We'll be back in 5 minutes.
Thank you.
We move back to,
And it also has to be supported. It's not only people who are using it.
I know I need them to see the screen. I need them to see the screen is in the way. The screen is there.
Will we please resume the meeting?
Palm.
You still online? Good.
One, yeah.
Okay, we're going to move to item 10.1, which is the draft bylaw 2754. And Director of Planning.
Good evening, Council. I am here to talk about development at 6831 Artaban Street. The purpose of the report before you is to present an update to the application to amend the zoning of that property. So on September 12th, Council resolved to defer readings of City of Powell River Zoning Bylaw 2100-2006 Amendment Bylaw 2754-2024 to this evening to allow staff and the applicant to negotiate further details. On September 17th, staff met with the applicant to discuss their proposal and to negotiate an outcome that both parties could support. This report outlines those negotiations and proposes amendments to the subject conditions recommended to be met prior to zoning approval being granted. The focus of the September 17th negotiations was the proposed number of dwelling units across the development and the applicant's amenity contribution. You may recall that the applicant was unsatisfied with the subject conditions included as part of council resolution. The council resolution moved on July 11th that requires a minimum of 2 dwellings per lot, as well as a request to provide a community amenity contribution in the form of affordable housing rental units secured under the terms of a housing agreement. The applicant expressed concern that these requirements would make the development unachievable. The applicant's preference is to have the option to achieve higher density development without a commitment to do so. The applicant would also like to contribute to the city's Affordable Housing Reserve Fund and make a cash contribution for dwelling units created instead of providing affordable housing units themselves. The outcome of the September 17th meeting is that the applicant has agreed to provide 80 dwelling units across the entire development and provide a cash contribution of $500 per dwelling unit created for the deposit of the city's Affordable Housing Reserve Fund. And just to give you some context, the original proposal, the developer was proposing 54 lots, a unit per lot. Staff were looking for 108, so 80 units across the entire development. 28 less than what staff had originally said, 26 more than what the developer, so almost in the middle. So staff are in support of both proposed changes. The 80 dwelling units would be reached or would be achieved through a mix of single detached dwelling units and townhouses. So to support this, the applicant has proposed an amendment to their original rezoning and subdivision applications. Move to what is Appendix C from your staff report. The updated subdivision plan that illustrates the new configuration is attached to this report and excludes an additional lot being created. I don't know if I can use this thing. No, can't use it on the screens here, so I'm going to have to talk you through it. So proposed lot A is where the existing institutional facility is. It's off of the Artaban Street. Proposed lot B is against Dinny Lane. It is the lot where the strata subdivision is proposed, and that would be a 33 lot subdivision. Ooh, look at that. This is proposed lot B here. And then proposed lot C is this new lot that's been created, and that's where this townhouse development would be, again, if rezoning application is supported. On the screen is a layout that illustrates the proposed future development. Again, you can see the 33 lot Bearland Strata subdivision there, and then you can see what is being proposed here. These are townhouse units. Front doors meet fresh air is what I like to say. We're not talking about apartments. We're just talking about shared walls. It is recommended that the subject conditions associated with this application be updated to best reflect the discussions between staff and the applicant. This would include rescinding the subject conditions established in July and replacing with those that included on the recommendation before council to consider today. It is also recommended that the updated version of City of Powell River Zoning Bylaw 2100 2006 Amendment Bylaw 2754 2024 be read 3 times. And so that is it for me. I'm here for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Gow, it's great to see this. I believe I was the one that asked for the deferment and for the conversation, and I like the results in the end and glad to see both parties are in approval. The question I guess I had was something you just mentioned about the 2 different lots, B and C there, and you said B was the Bearland strata. Would C then also be part of that strata because the road appears to be on lot B but not on lot C? So I was just curious about that.
Through the chair to Councilor Almeida. So the Bearland strata would be its own entity, and then the multifamily property would be another strata. There would be easements and other things to gain access. That's how it would be achieved, or at least that's what the developer is proposing at this point.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm curious if there's a subdivision between Lot B and Lot C, and the subject E talks about 80 dwelling units being across these lands. Like, what happens if they sell one of the subdivided lots? Like, how, I'm trying to think, how can we ensure that this is protected and that future developers are able to make it work?
So my expectation, through the chair to Councilor Isaacson, my expectation is that there will be a further covenant at some point that lays out very specifically what the unit breakdown will be. When the developer and I were discussing, they were weighing how they wanted to lay that out. And so instead of trying to hold their feet to the fire at the 11th hour, I said we would establish, at least as a placeholder, this restrictive covenant, and then we would revisit that at another time when they've made a choice about how they best want to achieve that. And what I mean by that is there may be an opportunity to achieve more units, taller units in terms of the multifamily portion, and less secondary suites or 2 dwelling units on the Bearland strata. I think they're really just trying to figure out how it would best work. So does that answer your question?
Yes, and as a follow-up question, you talk about 80 dwelling units. I mean, in theory, could that mean that all of these end up being single-family dwellings in theory, but some of them have accessory dwellings? Like, are we looking at multifamily on Lot C, or like, I think do accessory dwellings count as dwellings?
Yeah, through the chair to Councilor Isaacson. So the multifamily lot, it's an RM1 zone if it's approved. And one of the other covenants that's being proposed is no further subdivision. So it would have to be, it would have to be multifamily and, like I say, townhouse development. That said, there is now the permission through the BC Building Code to have those secondary suites in multifamily units. So again, I think it's more of a conversation with the developer along the way to achieve those, and that's why I think the 80 unit right now up front is a kind of a catch-all. I do suspect that we'll go back and probably fine-tune that once the developer has a better idea as to what it truly looks like in terms of the layout.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes, Councilor Doubt.
So there really is, I don't see any requirement that the multifamily portion of this plan is actually built. Am I right about that?
Through the chair to Councilor Doubt, if there was a desire to establish another restrictive covenant that either required that the developer build out a certain portion of the multifamily first, that's something that council could consider. It wasn't staff's desire to get that into it. I think what you're suggesting is, could the multifamily lot sit vacant forever? And they could say to council at some point, hey, we're not getting any bites on this multifamily lot because we haven't built on it. Hey, we'd like to rezone it to something that we could build single family. I think I want to leave that to a future council and to the market. My hope is that the developer will meet their word and build on that lot. My true hope is that they'll see how many units that they sell in multifamily and come back asking to convert some of the Bearland strata to a multifamily lot. That is my true hope, that I understand the housing market in our community right now. I know where the price point is, and I know that those single family lots are not going to come in at $500,000. They're going to come in at higher than that. And then we know that that multifamily property is what's actually desirable and needed in our community.
Really what I have to say is going to be debate. It's not questions for you.
Any further discussion? Clearly.
So my question was a little bit about the different Bearland stratas. I noticed in this photo there are 9 units in the multifamily drawing. And how many housing units, 9 little buildings drawn on here. How many housing units are those 9 little buildings supposed to have just for that strata?
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott. This goes back to my original, one of my earlier comments about the developer has, at one point they showed 3 options. And so even in those options 1 through 3, they had different unit counts on those buildings. So, and it really comes down to, are we talking about a 2-story or a 3-story? And they may achieve 3 units or 4 units per unit. But again, I would...
3 or 4?
3 or 4 is what they're looking at.
Or a combination?
Combination is also one of the options, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Armida,
If there's no other questions, I can start the motions.
please.
And just want to check with the corporate officer. I see 5 different recommendations, so we need 5 motions and votes, I presume, because there's 3 readings, so we have to do them separately. Okay, but I'm not going to read number 2 in its entirety, right?
Each one separately.
I'm going to accept that as a yes. Okay. I move that subject conditions 2A through D included as part of Council Resolution number 24-255, moved on July 11th, 2024, and shown on Appendix A, be rescinded.
Yes, seconded by Councillor Southcott. Any further discussion? All in favor?
No.
Further discussion?
I was just
Councillor
waiting
Doubt.
to see if anybody was going to speak in favor of it. I'm sure they are, but I'm not. When I looked at this piece of property, I thought this is an opportunity for council to do something to create some possibilities for affordable housing. I was encouraged by the requirement in the previous version of this that each building should have 2 dwellings in it. And I heard what the proponents were saying this would move a $500,000 house up to a $700,000 house, and that would be unaffordable. But I went home and I did my homework and I figured out that if you sold one part of that 2-dwelling building for $400,000 and the other one for $300,000, which adds up to that $700,000, you actually get 2 homes, one of which would be affordable for somebody working a typical job in the city of Powell River. The other ones are beyond it. If we talk and, the planning department has said that they don't think any of these buildings these single family homes will come in at $500,000. I tend to agree with that. But if you did, and if you had a $25,000 down payment, you'd need $150,000 a year income to pay for that mortgage. And the mortgage would be about $2,660 a year. So this is a nice development, and we're getting $500 per unit when they're built. I think it's correct when they're built that we can put into an affordable housing fund. I think the city should do more for affordable housing. That's why I'm not going to vote in favor of this.
Councillor Tom and then Councillor Elliott.
Yes, Your Worship, I wasn't going to speak on the topic, but Councillor Doubt has brought up a point. Somebody needs to speak in favor of this. And after I read the report and I reached out to the proponent, which seemed to be happy with the new revised report and the contents, the number one factor for me is we need to build more housing sooner rather than later to service the needs of our greater community. So I very much value this proposal coming back. Where the proponent is going to start building sooner rather than later, I'm fully in favor. Thank you.
Clearly,
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm also in favor of the motion. I am extremely pleased with the work done with staff and the proponent since the last time we spoke on this matter. This is market housing, and we've heard time and time again from developers that a truly affordable housing is really difficult to achieve in market housing, and we need to start having different types of projects that are non-market housing that are funded from other ways, and the developers are willing to participate in working on those units, but they can't really afford to sell them in a free market system. The proposal for this one is a little bit ingenious, actually. It's a bare land strata, which means that the city is not on the hook for maintaining all of the roads and sewer lines and water lines that are within the strata boundaries. So that means that if they break, the strata themselves pays for them, not the city. So it's less of a burden on the future people within the city. The density is higher than we're achieving in most other market projects. And just to make a point, on a single family dwelling in the zoning that is being asked for in this case and has been on the table all along, you don't sell half of a single family dwelling. It's sold as a single lot unit. It's not separated in the BC assessment, and you can't sell them separately. So you're requiring someone to buy the entire thing and become a landlord. And not every young family who's trying to get into a home can afford to be a landlord or pay for that extra suite. And so the proposal here is to make it lower cost by doing the bare land strata and with really tiny lots. And the hope was to be able to have an entry-level home for those that needed it. I think entry-level homes come very, very well in multifamily units too, but it's just a different setup and doesn't allow them to sell a lot to somebody who wants to build their home all by itself. So the proposal is to separate it into two bare land stratas, which is ingenious, and have the developer do a market multifamily unit, which I live in one, by the way. It's a bit different, not a bare land strata, it's a regular strata. So I don't know how a bare land strata works with multi-unit, and I probably should have asked that. But and because I don't have those details, I don't know. But I'm trusting that the people doing this do understand how it works. I don't know how you sell a single unit within a multi-family in a bare land strata. I think you have to be a regular strata, don't you?
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott. So I didn't explain this very well, but the bare land strata is the subdivision of the 33 units, and then it would be a building strata, much like Wise Headwaters in which you live. So the same.
Okay.
Yes.
So it'd be similar to where I live now.
That's correct.
Okay. And so I think that's an excellent combination of different types of market housing that fall in the lower cost range, even though they don't meet strictly affordable housing. We're really not going to get there through market housing, and this is a niche that we need more of. I think everything under 600,000 is selling faster than anything over at this point. So I'm pretty happy with the results of what we have here, and I'm in favor of it.
I would like to compliment the staff for, I think, an excellent job they've done in negotiating this, and I'm certainly going to vote in favor. So if there's, Councillor Isaacson, did you have a further point?
Yes, I think, I mean, my points to this also relate to the, discussion that we'd be doing on item number 2. I think, yes, this community needs more affordable housing, and there's 2 ways we're going to get it: building multifamily and or nonprofit housing. And, I have to say, given that this land is owned by Inclusion, I would express disappointment that they're not prioritizing this land for affordable housing, like community building fund applications and building affordable housing. They've already done some of that in this community, and I commend them for that. And so there are other ways that we as a council can support more affordable housing. I think in making decisions such as these, I weigh basically what is the most we can get out of a prospective developer, given what our community needs. And, I expressed at previous meetings that because this lot is fairly near to a neighborhood center, that density makes sense. Having more homes for more people close to services and future services is really important. I have to say, I think I even like this more than the original 2 dwellings per lot proposal because of the multifamily strata nature of some of the other buildings, rather than expecting each lot to have a basement or granny suite. And so while it probably doesn't go as far as I would like overall with density and the number of multifamily units, it's much closer to what I would hope for this area of the community. And so I support it, and will be voting. Well, I'll be voting in favor of this motion and the subsequent ones, unless I somehow get persuaded otherwise.
All right, we have a motion that's been seconded. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? We have 6 in favor, 1 opposed. The motion passes.
I'll go ahead to number 2.
Please.
I move that as per the package, everything pointed in number 2 about prior to zoning approval being granted, the applicant's required to follow all 6 steps that are listed in the agenda package as provided by staff.
Seconder by Councillor Southcott. All in favor? Opposed? We have 6 in favor, 1 opposed. The motion passes.
I move the City of Powell River zoning bylaw 2100, 2006, amendment bylaw 2754, 2024 be read a first time.
Isaacson, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Passed unanimously.
I move that City of Powell River zoning bylaw 2100, 2006, amendment bylaw 2754, 2024 be read a second time.
Councillor Southcott, all in favor? Motion passed unanimously.
I move that City of Powell River zoning bylaw 2100, 2006, amendment bylaw 2754, 2024 be read a third time.
Seconded by Councillor Southcott, all in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move to agenda item 10.2, which is the draft bylaw, which is permissive tax exemption. I would just point out that if anybody other than myself has a conflict when that comes up, if they would please step out.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. 4 permissive tax exemption bylaws are being proposed tonight for Council consideration. These bylaws have been prepared in accordance with the direction received from the committee on September 10th. This will exempt approximately $380,000 in municipal taxes. This amount is within the $400,000 permissive tax exemption cap established by Council. 4 separate bylaws are being proposed to facilitate councillors who may recuse themselves due to a conflict of interest. Without any further ado, I'll turn the floor over to Mayor and Council, and thank you very much.
Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you, Mayor. For clarity, the item that I mentioned before in proposing a possible amendment is to the second bylaw that we'll get to, so not the first one. I will move, I believe for 2765, none of us are in conflict, so I will move that City of Powell River permissive tax exemption bylaw number 2765, 2024 be given a first reading.
Seconded by Councillor Almeida.
And I just explain what we're doing right now, the 4 different chunks. So this first reading is specific to various churches. So churches and nonprofits are treated differently when it comes to permissive tax exemptions. And so this first chunk are churches and ones that none of us are in conflict on.
Councillor Doak.
So I thought there may be some possible amendments to this, to our permissive tax exemption resolution. Just watching reactions around the table here, I thought there might be some willingness to change what we're doing. And I thought one possible way to change what we're doing is respond positively to all of the people that have written us letters and said how disappointed they were that they weren't selected. And we could take the alternate path, which is accept all of the applications that we got and divide the money by so that everybody gets an equal percentage of the $400,000 cap. If we pass this and move on to other ones, we won't have the option to do it. I'd just as soon approve what the committee decided when we had a thorough discussion at committee. I just want to be clear that if we go ahead and pass this one, it'll make it much more difficult to make changes to the future ones because the amount of money in the cap changes every time we make a decision.
So Southcott, and then
Thank you, Mayor. So I can't support this one and I can't support any of the others. After receiving the letters from Mr. Hargrave of Kiwanis and Mr. Craig from Sunset Homes, and also having conversations with more than one representative from the organizations that we disqualified. Going back a few years, the project with Sunset Homes, as is outlined by Mr. Craig, to create the building that's in the old Max Cameron High School property on Joyce. I don't know whether this was actually released, but I'll take a chance. We at least once dug to find ways to find more money for them so that that project could actually go through. I think we leveraged city, I think the permissive tax exemptions were part of it, and there was something else I don't remember. The point is that it was really, really clear to me back then that this is an organization that doesn't operate on any excess at all. I've seen not quite as far into life cycle, but although we've granted them the permissive tax exemption, but I don't believe any of these organizations, except for one that didn't apply, that is providing housing in this community, are doing anything but getting by with the bare minimum and the maximum as far as finances go, and the maximum of volunteerism. So I don't know exactly how our system failed to see that, but I feel that it's a failure, and I absolutely cannot conscience giving permissive tax exemptions to some organizations on the list that are suggested here without including our housing providers, our low-cost housing providers. Our strategic priorities make it quite clear that housing is a priority for us. It is absolutely clear that housing is a priority across our society and in this community. So I will not support this first bylaw, 10.2, and I can't support any of the other ones. And I do agree with Councillor Dowd. I would like to see us go back to redividing this based on a reanalysis of the information and direct communication with representatives of those housing providers that we disqualified.
we have 3 councillors already. I'm going to start with Councillor Elliott.
Oh, sorry, Your Worship. Yes, did you call my name?
No,
Councillor Elliott.
Councillor Elliott.
Oh, okay.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. I thought I wasn't after Councillor Isaacson, but so I wanted to hear, Councillor Isaacson had an idea that she would be able to change something in one of the other bylaws that might address some of the concerns happening here. Now, I don't know what that idea is, but I want to hear it before voting on this one in case what Councillor Doubt said is got some merit. I am in general in favor of supporting permissive tax exemptions on sites that are providing affordable housing. The issue I run into is when we decide an entire organization for all of their properties, even some of those which are not providing affordable housing, but are doing maybe delivery of provincial government services, for example. And normally provincial government services, if they're delivered by the provincial government, contributes to the city tax base. And removing that from us is another way of downloading onto the taxpayers of the city. So social programs are awesome, and they're contracted to some of these agencies to be delivered on behalf of the province. And that's a good model because it is more efficient than necessarily having a government agency do it. But it shouldn't cost the city more taxpayers more money to deliver it through that contracting through a nonprofit than not doing it that way. And so I don't think we should be using that avenue to avoid taxes from the province. The province should be building the cost of taxes into the services that they're delivering through these agencies. And I don't want to support them not doing that. Our policy guidance doesn't allow staff to sort of distinguish between those. And so that's why we get recommendations that don't distinguish between what the parcels are being used for necessarily, because it has to be in our policy or our bylaws of some such thing in order for us to get a recommendation from staff for that. Now, I'm unclear if we can make a political decision just based on what we are trying to support that is not supported by policy or not, and that's kind of a question maybe to our CFO.
Through the chair, you may make whatever decision suits council in this regard. All of these applicants that have been brought forward at the Committee of the Whole on September 10th were vetted to ensure they met the criteria in the community charter. And so those have been pre-vetted so that anything brought forward from September 10th would be eligible for a permissive tax exemption should council wish.
We have a motion on the floor. We have at least two councillors that are asking to speak to the. I'm going to ask Councillor Palm and then Councillor Isaacson.
Yeah, Your Worship. So I've got to clarify a couple of things where we are in this discussion. First of all, the motion on the floor is draft bylaw 2765. Am I correct?
Yep.
Which refers to religious organizations, churches only.
Through the chair, yes.
That's what's on the floor. We're not talking about any homes or anything at this point. But I understand you can't talk later when that comes up. Is that correct?
No, I can talk for all of these.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So I don't understand how the sunset homes and everything enters into the equation when we're just talking about religious facilities here.
Single cap on the thing.
It's
Single what?
Sorry,
Can explain and.
yes. I'm going to go to Councillor Isaacson.
Yeah, so to explain, Councillor Palm, if we pass this, then the pool of money that we've given to this category means that the pool isn't as big for the other ones. And so if we're going to do something different, we should do it for all. But my question for staff, actually, because this first category is for churches, and those are governed differently under provincial legislation than nonprofits. And this first category, don't they have to receive 100% on the church lot itself?
Through the chair, just there's one chair tonight. Just other nights, I guess. The churches are automatically statutory exemption for their building and the land beneath the building. And so the applications that have been received are simply for pretty much it's just the parking lot and maybe a little bit of green space where they do meetings, outdoor activities, what have you, for kids, playgrounds. We do check with them to ensure that any land that they've asked to have exempt outside of the building is for the purposes of their activities and service to the community and their members. And so these don't add up to as much. I could add it up, but it is just generally the parking lots. So you do have full discretion on that to change that should council wish. The reason they are separated is because it's a preference by BC Assessment. Because they are statutory exempt, when we send them the bylaws, they prefer to have the churches exempt just because there's other complexities with them. So just to give that background on why they're separated out.
Okay, so just to clarify, the land religious facility has already been exempted. This is the bonus land that we have discretion over.
Through the chair, it's all the land. So the land underneath the building and the building are statutory exempt, and this is the land outside of that footprint. I wouldn't call it bonus as in surplus. Some surplus land that they wouldn't use, we would not include that in the calculation. So we look at maps and we talk to the group. So this would be land around the building that they use for purposes of delivering their services.
So then to clarify, Councillor Dowd's question, if we were to amend this ways to answer Councillor Elliott's question, like considering, there were two things that I was considering. One was to add, right now we're at like 376,000, I think, of our 400,000 bucket. And what was that? 383. And so one idea would be, once we get to the nonprofit section one, is to take that extra money and add a clause giving that extra tax exemption to Sunset Homes. And so that would give them, I think, like 38% of a tax exemption. And so that's one way to go about it. The other way would be to add everybody up, including the affordable housing agencies, and divide that the 400,000 among them. And so if Sunset Homes was included, it would mean everyone would get 91% instead of 100. And then if inclusion and Powell River Inclusive Services Society was included, that number would go down further. So those were the options that I was considering. The easiest one, because based on our committee discussion, I didn't feel that there was appetite for really getting into this. And so I was going to include a simple amendment to include Sunset Homes at that 38%. But if there's appetite to open up this conversation and do a reduced exemption for everyone so that the affordable housing societies are included, I'm totally interested in that. Again, it would be 91% for all if Sunset Homes was included, and it would be less than that further if inclusion Powell River was included.
So we currently have a motion on the floor. So if the majority of people would like to look an alternative to what staff has recommended, I suggest we vote on the motion that's on the floor, and if it's defeated, then councillor can bring forward an alternative motion. So,
I have to make a couple of comments.
Okay, we just got.
Because I wasn't quite finished.
Yeah, just a second, Councillor Palm. Okay, so we've got an order. Okay, we've got Councillor Palm, we've got Councillor Dowd. Okay, and we have Councillor Almeida.
Councillor Palm goes ahead in the speaking order, does he?
I haven't spoken yet.
Just finished speaking. It's just that we had clarification.
Oh, you're just, I'm lost there.
That's okay.
I thought everybody had spoken.
That's why we're a team. We're getting everybody back on side now. Would you continue, Councillor Palm?
So I don't want to muddy the water on what has been recommended by staff. They've done a great deal of work on this. And as was just stated, our staff are following the recommendations of the community charter that they have to abide by. And that was the report we received when we first dealt with this at length. And we came up with what is on the table tonight. So I don't want to You're going to, either you send the whole thing back to staff to work on again, or we accept what we have and you can worry about it down the road. But tonight, we should be passing what is proposed, because there's only a finite number of a bit of money. And I'm very thankful of staff following the recommendations of our community charter, and we had lengthy discussion already on this. Well, I'm not going to support muddying the water on this tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Almeida.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a question for our CFO regarding timelines when it comes to PTEs. Is there a particular period of time that council has to have a final decision on? Because I know it's technically first 3 readings plus another meeting for adoption. So it's a 2-meeting process regardless.
Yes, through the chair, the deadline to BC assessment to have the adopted bylaws is October 31st. So the plan was that the bylaws would get first 3 readings today and then go to the 24th of October.
Councillor,
Yeah, I would say then based on that, I think Councillor Isaacson's original idea, which would be using the leftover funds from what we've already loosely debated on, might be the easiest solution in the time being for now, and revisit next year for a better solution maybe.
Councillor Dowd.
Yeah. I'm going to ask staff, because we've talked about an awful lot of things, about what the motion on the floor is. What is the motion on the floor and what are we talking about?
Through the chair, the motion on the floor is to give bylaw 2765 first reading.
Which?
To give bylaw 2765 first reading.
Right. And that's to exempt various churches from taxes. I'm going to continue with what I said before. My sense from listening to people is that many people around the table, I believe, have felt a tug on the heartstrings when they've received a letter from the different housing societies. Would like to do something about that. If we pass this motion, we are providing some tax exemptions, and that would be carved in stone. We want to if we want to relook at that, whether we pass it or we defeat it, it would be a reconsideration motion. And if we wanted to utilize that money and spread it around and give the churches perhaps a smaller percentage than 100, it would be a reconsideration motion. That's why I'm suggesting that the right way out of this might be, unfortunately, to make a motion to postpone this until after we've got a report from staff that includes those housing associations, if we want to do that. If we don't, you know, I was prepared when we came here to just vote in favor of all the work we've done previously and move forward, and once again hope that we would have a more defined process when we do this again next year. But we say that every year. So I would say that it's probably, rather than trying to go through these one at a time and then do patchwork stuff that might occur to different people at different times, we might be better off to give this back to staff to rethink it if what we do want them to do is to rethink.
We have a motion on the floor. And you have a further point before we call the motion?
A procedural question. Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion has been read in and seconded. Is it possible to amend the percentage within the bylaw prior to calling the question, or would we have to? So if we wanted to, for example, make everyone 91% to include Sunset Homes in an equitable distribution, which is what Councillor Isaacson said the percent would be, and I believe she conferred with the CFO before making that piece of information known. Is it possible where we're at with this motion being read to amend 100% to 91% in this bylaw before moving forward?
Through the chair, you can amend the bylaw after first reading, so you can give it first reading and then amend the bylaw. Making an amendment at this time would only be amending the motion. You couldn't amend the bylaw because the motion isn't the bylaw, if that makes sense.
So then correct me if I'm wrong, we can move forward and pass this first reading and still amend the percentages prior to second reading?
Correct.
So that might be a good way forward.
We have a motion on the floor. Further discussion before we go? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I will now move to, yes.
So given the question by Councillor Elliott, I would like to, we could amend the bylaw and then give it second reading. So this is correct? Okay, I move to amend draft bylaw 2765-2024 to remove 100% and replace it with 91%.
Seconded?
Yes.
Yes. So we have a seconder.
Is that process good stuff?
Councillor Doubt.
So I assume that because it wasn't said, that we're reducing the proportion to these applicants in making an assumption that we're going to increase grant to another applicant later on, probably, maybe.
I can speak to the motion. So I would speak to the motion. It is my understanding that the intention of making it 91% is to leave room for equitable distribution between all of the approved proponents if we add Sunset Homes to the list. And that gives everybody 91% across the board.
Thank you, Mayor. So just for clarifications, the plan would be to only add Sunset Homes. There was 3 groups that I believe that didn't get included, but we're only adding Sunset Homes as the plan.
That's what we're trying to do. Yeah. And if you don't agree with that, you should probably not vote for the amendment.
I just want to understand before we vote in either direction.
Councillor Palm.
Yes, Your Worship. Through the chair, I need to ask staff 2 questions. One, timelines that you just presented, and if these changes are made, can they be met?
Through the chair, yes, they can.
And the second question is, by adding Sunset Homes, as you referred to, abiding by the community charter, does that still abide by the community charter rule?
Through the chair, yes, it does.
We have a motion on the floor. Being no further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? We have 5 in favor and 2 opposed. The motion passes.
I move that City of Powell River Permissive Tax Exemption Bylaw number 2765-2024 be given a second reading.
Seconded. Any further discussion?
Oh, as amended. Yes, sorry. Bylaw number 2675-2024 as amended be given second reading.
Second that.
All in favor? Opposed? Passed unanimously.
And I move that City of Powell River Permissive Tax Exemption Bylaw number 2765-2024 as amended be given third reading.
Seconded by Councillor Southcott. All in favor? Opposed? Passed unanimously. We are now moving on to draft bylaw 2766.
I can continue. These ones are, I believe, nonprofit organizations that none of us have a conflict with. So I move that City of Powell River Permissive Tax Exemption. Oh, no. Before we even get to first, should I move to amend the draft bylaw now or between first and second? Okay. I move to amend draft bylaw 2766-2024 to replace 100% with 91%.
Do we have to add the extra?
Yes. Can do them at the same time. And I also, replace 100% with 91% and add, do I need to read the 3 folio numbers? Maybe I should read them for the record, yeah. I move to add to the list folio 1734 010 PID 008 541 451 Lot 18 Block B Plan VAP 13581 District Lot 5105 Group 1 New Westminster Land District owned by Powell River Sunset Home Society 4167 Westview Avenue. Do I need to read the next 2? I probably should read the next 2 fully for the record since it's not written in the agenda. And folio 1708 000 PID 009 893 555 Lot 2 Plan VAP 8918 District Lot 5105 Group 1 New Westminster Land District Accept Plan 14467 owned by Powell River Sunset Home Society 4156 Westview Avenue. And add folio 213562 PID 029 385 725 Lot 2 Plan EPP 38557 District Lot 5121 Group 1 New Westminster Land District owned by Powell River Sunset Home Society 4360 Joyce Avenue.
Seconded by Southcott.
And I'll just make sure it's clear what the amendment would do to this draft bylaw. It would again reduce it from 100 to 91% so that we are distributing through all of the organizations, including the 3 lots that have just been added, the ones owned by Sunset Home Society.
We have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? In favor? Opposed?
My vote recorded, Your Worship. Thank you.
Okay, and I then move that City of Powell River Permissive Tax Exemption Bylaw number 2766, 2024, as amended, be given first reading.
Seconded by Councilor Armida. All in favor? Opposed? Unopposed? Oh, sorry, 2 opposed.
I move that City of Powell River Permissive Tax Exemption Bylaw number 2766, 2024, be given second reading, or as amended, be given second reading.
So Armida second. All in favor? Opposed? 5 in favor. 2 opposed.
And I move that City of Powell River Permissive Tax Exemption Bylaw number 2766, 2024 be given third reading. As amended, be given third reading.
Southcott, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 5-2. I'll move to draft bylaw 2767.
Happy to
Mayor,
continue.
I'll have to step out for this one.
I move to amend bylaw 2767, 2024. Draft bylaw 2767, 2024 to replace 100% with 91%.
Seconded by Councilor Southcott. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 4-2.
So I move that City of Powell River Permissive Tax Exemption Bylaw number 2767, 2024 as amended be given first reading.
Seconded by, Councilor Southcott. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 4-2.
I move that City of Powell River Permissive Tax Exemption Bylaw number 2767, 2024 as amended be given second reading.
Favor? Opposed? Motion passes 4-2.
I move that City of Powell River Permissive Tax Exemption Bylaw number 2767, 2024 as amended be given third reading.
Seconded by Councilor Southcott. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 4-2. We'll now move to draft bylaw 2768, and I have to excuse myself as I have a conflict.
So Southcott.
And move to amend draft bylaw 2767-2024 to replace 100% with 91%.
Discussion?
Microphone.
Okay. Seconder was Councillor Armada. Discussion? Seeing none?
This is reducing the Senior Citizens Association percentage that they will be getting on the state senior citizens.
Seeing no other comments, all in favor? Any opposed? One opposed, Councillor Palm.
Councillor Dowd.
Oh, two, Councillor Dowd.
I move that City of Pell River permissive tax exemption bylaw number 2768-2024 as amended be given first reading.
Seconder, Councillor Elliott. Discussion? Councillor Elliott.
I just wanted to make the point that Sunset Homes is affordable housing for seniors, and by adding them, we've increased funding for seniors affordable housing in Powell River. Thanks. For seniors.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Two opposed, Councillor Dowd, Councillor Palm. Motion passes.
I move that City of Pell River permissive tax exemption bylaw 2768-2024 as amended be given second reading.
Councillor Elliott, second. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Two opposed, same as last time. Motion passes.
I move that City of Pell River permissive tax exemption bylaw number 2768-2024 as amended be given third reading.
Councillor Elliott, second. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Two opposed, same as last time. Motion passes.
Thank you, staff, for your support with the procedural element of that. Good lesson today.
Somebody has left their keys in the other room in case they're looking for them after the meeting is over. Now move to 10 points, no.
10.7.
10.7, which is draft bylaw 2764. Councillor Elliott.
I move that the City of Powell River parking lot bylaw 2313-2012 amendment bylaw 2764-2024 be adopted.
Do we have any further? Councillor Almeida.
Just had a question for staff, Mayor. Thank you. I guess towards the CFO, I couldn't remember from our previous discussion, the increase in the parking fees, were we allocating that to any particular cause or purpose, or was it general revenue?
Through the chair, it is not dedicated to any specific item or fund. We aren't required to designate it as such. We would use the infrastructure bylaw, infrastructure reserve for any kind of repairs or overall capital improvements, what have you, for the area.
Thank you.
Councillor Isaacson.
Yep. And just for members of the public who are listening in, this is a bylaw amendment that came to Committee of the Whole previously that was discussed and originated from budget discussions last year about opportunities to increase revenue, and staff made some recommendations based on research of other areas, and this is the final bylaw adoption.
Okay, we have a motion which has been seconded. All in favor?
Sorry, I have a comment, Your Worship.
Sorry.
Yeah, just looking at the numbers here, which up until now, for some reason, I didn't see previously until tonight. That is, we are increasing parking fees from the current 15 to 30. And if you're late after 14 days, it comes to 60. And the information I see here is that it's based on the Vancouver rate, where they pay 35 and then 60. We don't live in Vancouver. We don't have the massive parking situation problem that Vancouver has. And this increase is way beyond the increase that should be proposed for Powell River. In my estimation, I won't be voting for it. Thank you.
Councillor Isaacs.
Just a clarification. So the numbers that you shared, Councillor Palm, are for fines for people that parking fines, and the fees are going from $5 per day to $7.50 per day. Just to clarify that.
We have a motion. Do we have any further discussion before I call the motion? All in favor? Opposed? We have the motion passes 6-1. Now move to unfinished business. 11.1 Intergovernmental Relations Protocol Working Group Terms of Reference. And Councillor Isaacson like to speak to that.
Yeah, I'll make the motion first. I move that council approve the Intergovernmental Relations Protocol Working Group Terms of Reference as presented.
By Councillor Elliott.
And just to explain where this is coming from, so the working group that was established earlier this year has met twice. The first one was to have a general discussion about purposes. And based on that discussion, the group then got together again and affirmed this terms of reference to be sent to each of the governments involved for our approval. And so this just lays out how the working group will work, how they meet, and really clarifies that that the purpose of this working group is to make recommendations to members council, but does not decide for or act on behalf of their councils, and just outlines again how we meet, the purpose of those meetings, the procedures, etc. So this is to approve terms of reference in order for us to move forward and continue discussions.
Councillor Palm.
Your Worship, I'm all for communication with the groups that are mentioned in this report. I just wish we could adopt the old 3C forum that we used to have for discussion, which was open in the public. This is behind closed doors. So I have some concerns, and they are of a legal nature. So I am going to propose a motion that we send this to legal counsel for review. And I'd like to send it to Mr. Manhas from Young and Anderson to get legal definition as to this process.
I'm just going to ask our CEO, we have a motion which is seconded on the table. We now have a proposal for another motion. How should we proceed?
Thank you, Chair. The motion on the floor would need to be voted on before moving on to a new motion, unless it was an amendment or a deferral motion.
So I'm just going to ask Councillor Palm for clarification of what he's asking for, given what our CEO has said.
We can vote on the original motion and then I'll bring my motion forward. Sure.
Okay. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I believe Councillor Palm's intention was to have legal advice on it before it was adopted. So I believe we could postpone the motion as well and then move on to a second motion. I'm not in favor of postponing because the terms of reference meet all of the criteria we've had from legal advice so far. It doesn't preclude C3, and I think C3 is one of the things that the working group is trying to get back on track. And this is some work to be done in conversation to sort of help us get back to C3. And so I'm also in favor of C3, and I'm in favor of being as public as possible. We're talking about intergovernmental relations, and so the protocol on the wall that we signed back there says that when we're having some struggles that we should form working groups to try and talk our way through some matters, propose solutions back to council that we can either agree or not agree with, and they can do the same, and that is work that we need to do. So I'm in favor of moving forward. Should the rest of council wish to have legal advice on this particular terms of reference prior to adopting it, we should probably postpone this motion.
Sorry, just, so we have a motion on the, do we have any further discussions or questions? Councillor Doubt.
Want to be clear again what the motion on the floor is. And I think it's to adopt the intergovernment, what is it?
The terms of reference.
Approve the intergovernment relations protocol working group terms of reference as presented. I think that's the motion on the floor.
Is any further discussion on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? We have the motion passes 6-1. And now we move to new business. 4.1.
Sorry, Your Worship, I'd like to, even though we passed the motion, I would like to make the second motion that we get legal opinion as to the motion that was just passed as to the legality proceedings.
Okay. We have a seconder for the motion. For Elliott seconded. Do we have any further discussion? Sir Elliott.
I just wanted to ask staff if that would be a simple inquiry that would, cost us much money in that regard.
Through the chair, I think we can get you a response. Are you wanting somebody to come speak to you versus just asking the question?
The motion was just to ask the question.
Okay. So I think we can ask the question in a manner that is not terribly costly and that will provide the information you wish. Thank you.
Thank you.
Worship, I specifically stated the law firm of Ernst Young and Mr. Manhas because I would like to hear his rationale directly, not just in a question, but face to face on a screen so that we can be definitive on the answer.
It's more expensive.
Okay. We have Councillor Doubt and
Yeah.
Councillor Silk.
Thank you. Just going to comment on it. Going to cost money to do that. It is, Councillor Palm, and it's going to take staff work and it's going to take council time.
Whoa.
We've already reviewed the terms of reference. We've already passed it by a majority vote of council. Now we're going to invite legal counsel to come and ask some questions. And I guess, if we're all not happy, we would reconsider this decision and change it. The goal is to actually have a working group, going back to what the working group was set up to do, to meet with members of the Tla'amin Nation to try to find a way back to better communications, including C3 meetings that could happen regularly and be agreed to. I'd like to do that. If you want to get a lawyer to come and spend time here, let's just recognize we're spending money on stuff that I'm thinking at the end they're going to say, pretty good. You guys should go ahead and do that and try to communicate.
Okay, Councillor Isaacson, Southcott, and then.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't support this motion. I would have supported it if this working group consisted of a majority of council, but it's not. We are not a decision-making body. We can't make decisions on behalf of council, and everything comes back to council to work through our due processes. And so we're not up against the community charter, section 90.1 or 2, because we are not a majority of council or not a quorum of council. And so I'm very comfortable with these. I don't think we need the time or money spent on that. I think we would just, as Councillor Dowd said, be told, yeah, looks good.
Councillor Southcott.
Thank you, Mayor. As the question for staff, do we not still have Lidstone and Company on retainer? And I realize we've started to deal a bit with Young Anderson, but I thought that was just on an ad hoc basis. Is that not true?
Through the chair, you're correct, we do. And at times staff, depending on the expertise of the different lawyers between the different firms, will access them, and also availability. So thank you.
I may follow up. In that case, my understanding previously was that the retainer with Lidstone gave us, questions like this periodically. I don't ever recall requiring a legal opinion to verify that a terms of reference for previous committees was legitimate or legal. I could be wrong about that, but I'm wondering why an opinion from Lidstone wouldn't be adequate.
Through the chair, going through Lidstone, I think they have folk who can respond to this as well. So this is a political discussion amongst council around your desires. Thank you.
Sir Elliott, you have your hand up.
So I did second the motion and I asked my questions. I'm actually not in favor of the motion. I've received a ton of legal advice on this matter, and everything in this terms of reference is consistent with all the advice I've had so far. And I don't feel we need to spend more money to get the same advice again. I'm quite confident that this non-decision making body is going to be fine legally. And so I'm going to vote against spending this money. Thanks.
Any further discussion before I call the question?
Thank you, Worship. Just to conclude, the reason for my motion is to receive a ruling as to the legality of the motion and the process from somebody that knows very well community charter, its legality, and because the meetings being proposed are behind closed doors, that has, and council is going to sanction such activity, there is a definite legal aspect of this that needs to be clarified. That's why I'm asking for that reference and that information to come forward, because I'm worried that we're putting ourselves in jeopardy. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Further comments from CEO? I am going to support Councillor Isaacson's position because I have again been involved in a number of discussions, and had there been 4 members of council on this group, I would definitely want a legal opinion, but since there's only 3, I'm going to vote against. So I'm going to call the motion. All in favor? Opposed? A motion is defeated.
Just to clarify, your worship, we will get an answer from Lidstone and Company, correct?
I believe the answer is no. So,
thank you.
We'll move now to item 12, new business. Boundary at that anchor table liaison. Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you, Mayor. Before making a motion, I'll just, because I'm open to seeing who's interested, Foundry Cathet reached out to Rob or Councillor Southcott and I because we tend to be people that show up at the Foundry events. And so they thought, well, you've got an interest in Foundry, and so maybe one of you would like to sit on an anchor table. And so this is a local leadership table to help inform the development of the Foundry Center. And they want to just make sure that all of the different parties that need to be involved for Foundry to move ahead are represented. And so given that I know they are looking at potential land within the city, and the success of their project might depend on city involvement, it would be helpful, I think, to have someone from council be appointed as a liaison. Again, as an individual, they can't be making decisions on behalf of council, but they can give quick recommendations on, when they need to talk to staff, when they need to come back to council for a decision, and just benefiting from the different connections that we have on council, including perhaps even with provincial staff and elected folks. So I thought it was worthwhile, if there is interest within the table of someone being appointed and someone being appointed as an alternate, that we do this. And so before making a motion, I'm happy to hear if anyone is I know Councillor Southcott and I are willing to serve on it or as an alternate, but if there are others, I'm happy to hear, because this doesn't, happy to spread the load.
So I've had a number of conversations with the Foundry provincial organization, and I'd like to move a motion that council appoint Councillor Isaacson as the liaison and Councillor Southcott as the alternative to the Foundry Cathet anchor table. Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm really happy we're appointing people. I think Councillor Isaacson and Councillor Southcott will serve us well. I'm super happy that we have a Foundry coming to Powell River. I was instrumental in the working it through UBCM and in partnership with others to ask for a Foundry here in Powell River. Started in our previous administration, and I'm extremely excited that we're moving forward. I did attend some of the initial planning meetings, and so I'm very pleased we're moving forward and appointing people, and I think it's a good place for us to be. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Motion passed unanimously. We're now moving to questions. Mr. Galinsky, you've quiet over there. Do you have any questions? Does anybody in our massive audience have any questions? Yes, please come forward.
Thank you. I got a preamble.
It's just for the people online, if you'd introduce yourself.
Yeah, it's Todd English. I was up earlier. This is a lot different conversation. I just need to preamble my question a little bit. I received some correspondence from the city on October the 4th. It was mailed out on the 27th. And I had called Mr. Gao, just had a good conversation with him about, my concerns. And he said, well, you have to be 10 days before the meeting so I can get on to be a delegate to speak longer than a few minutes. So I'm sorry if I'm going to take a few minutes of time before I get to my question.
Sorry, I just on protocol, I have to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Is your question related to the agenda that we had today?
Yes.
All right, proceed then. Thank you.
So as this process has been going through with the supportive housing, I just want to make it clear that I'm all in favor of helping people. I was saying to a few counselors who I've spoken to that Powell River is a wonderful place, and if you fall in the ditch, somebody's going to pick you up, and it's a very unique community. And I know that we're going to take care of people regardless of all the banter that goes on. And 10 to 10, I take my hat off to you counselors and staff. This is painful going this long, and I don't want to take up too much time. But I'm, as you may know, we're longtime retailers in the community, but we're also developers, sort of by default, but we are, and we're pushing the envelope in Powell River. And I really take my hat off to the family from Cranbrook Golden Life and the Gies family, who have spent $50 to $60 million in our community next door to this proposed housing. I happen to be a partner owner in the 9 acres across the street, which undoubtedly is probably the closest, best multifamily site in that corridor that has the most potential for commercial / mixed use, a little higher density. Nobody has approached us. Nobody has said anything to this business community, the Aegis family, in great detail about the location of this. It's not about what it is, it's the location. And we all know we want it to be not what everybody's saying it can, it could be. But the fact is that, if I as a developer are going to look at this 9 acres as a 10, 20, 30, 50, $100 million build out, which it could be eventually, and we get the negative feedback from something like this, it makes someone not do it. And I think that's relevant. We're creating taxes, we're creating PIDs.
Got to
So
interrupt you to say, what is your question?
my question is why are we not considering this? Why are we not considering the location and the type of location it is, where it's by our rec center, by our walkways, by our businesses, with the stigma that the other unit has. And that's where, I got a late letter about, I wanted to get on the docket today and I couldn't because of time. So I apologize, because I would have got my 10 minutes. But the fact is, I'm concerned that we haven't been cognizant of the fact of location. And I know Alberta has gone a different route on location of supportive housing. And I haven't heard one word, why, my question is why there?
Okay, just for clarity today, there was a motion to defer further discussion on this until first council meeting in November. So I think that should have been an indication to you that there's a lot of questions here, some of which you just alluded to, that will be answered. Councillor Dowd and then Councillor Elliott will also provide an answer.
I have to be careful about how I say this because of the rules in the community charter. And I wish there was, but there's nothing I can share with you about BC Housing's search for an appropriate location. Not that there haven't been discussions. There's nothing I can share with you, and I regret that.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Your Worship. So one of the things we talked about today was the need for more time for the community to discuss all of the matters with respect to this project. Nothing we say up here should presuppose our decision in the end. So council's job is to listen and make choices at the right times to try to move things along. We're not able to actually tell people what our decisions are ahead of time. So I think that we are listening, and I hope you don't have the impression that we're not considering what you're saying now, or the things you want to say there's still lots of time to say them.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, and I'm happy with what happened today. I'm coming up here late. I wish I would have been on the docket to have this discussion even before you all made the decision. I think you made the right decision, and I'm happy about that. I just believe that the communication between the business community that are doing what they're doing. Like, I can't imagine what Brett and his board of directors are thinking they're not even finished the building yet. They're trying to fill it up. The Aegis families are trying to build this thing out. Well, of course they're worried. They're worried that people aren't going to look at that as maybe a desirable place to buy a home because they don't know. Everybody is at the seeking clarity right now. And we're worried too. We're worried about developing. We're worried. And so I just would like to see that the business community be a bit more in the know, or at least be communicated with even prior to a lot of this happening. We're busy. Everybody's busy. I get it. And I apologize if I hadn't brought anything forward sooner.
Thank you. Councillor Palm.
To help Mr. English to the chair, Worship, I would encourage you to reach out to your business community and the partners that you work with in that front that are building in that area, and encourage them all to come forward on November 1st when this is brought back so that they can get on.
Thank you, Councillor Palm.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. English. Do you have any other questions from the audience? Please come forward.
Hello, Robin Murray. Good to see everybody again. A couple of things. First off, I wanted to say thank you for getting the charter on the wall over there. I appreciate it. It's nice to see it up on the wall. My one question with regards to that is, after the meeting is over, can I get a picture with all of you in front of it? With me? Would you be fine with that? Perfect, thank you. The other thing is we were talking about what's it called? Permissive tax exemptions. So that's quite an interesting one. I've been thinking about this since last year when I was here for this discussion. Eligibility under point 1, under 4.2, under eligibility, the following info will be considered when determining whether to grant a permissive tax exemption. Section E says whether membership in the organization and use of the property is open to all residents of Powell River who would be reasonably expected to benefit from the programs and services. Now, when I go and look at the list of organizations, there's one that stands out which I have a question about. Cathet Film Society. They operate the Patricia Theatre. Now, when it comes to being open to all residents, I have to inform you of a little incident that I had with them, of them denying us use of it. Year and a half ago, there was a new documentary that came out called Unacceptable. It went on to receive numerous awards internationally, and it was a fantastic movie. It was about the trucker convoy to Ottawa. When we tried to have it shown there, the manager told us that they don't allow anything polarizing or divisive. Those were the exact words. And we went on to, and they wouldn't allow it to be shown there, and they wouldn't allow it to be for us to rent the place and show it privately. So we went on and we rented the Evergreen Theatre and had a wonderful event and had a great time, and everybody loved it. But I have a real problem with an organization that won't allow all groups to rent the theater to show movies using that excuse, when 2 weeks later in their film festival, one of the shows that they showed was from Extinction Rebellion. Now, if you're not familiar with Extinction Rebellion, they're kind of against the forestry industry. And forestry is a huge part of our history in this town, in our business. They're fine with that kind of a movie, but they're not fine with Unacceptable. I just want to voice my opposition that they would be getting a tax exemption for being censoring certain groups, but not others.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Murray.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody on? Oh. Okay.
Evening. My question tonight is unfortunately, or fortunately,
Yeah.
Mark Hassett,
Thank you very much.
resident of the city of Powell River. My question tonight is, I'm not sure whether it's for Lisa or for Mallory, but what I was wondering, since the councillors of the regional district won't be bringing forward the cost of the recycle center to council here, I was wondering if Mallory or the CAO could get Linda Greenwood, the accountant of the regional district, I think that's the accountant, isn't it, of the regional district, to come forward with a breakdown of city costs and regional costs at a council meeting where everybody can hear it and we can understand what we're at. That be a possibility?
Through the chair, the regional district's board meetings are open. And so any resident is welcome to ask them how they conduct their business. Well, we could ask the most respectful thing for them as a distinct government that we are, of course, a part of, is to go directly to them because this is their entity and resource. So they're not withholding information. It's
No.
just it's not appropriate for us to. Maybe can I ask my regional district colleagues, or sorry,
Well, I believe
what's appropriate here?
Doubt has made the point that this is their project. So it would seem consistent with the advice that our CAO has provided that for clarification that you simply put a request in.
My request would be to ask Linda Greenwood, the CEOC, the accountant of the regional board, to come forward to a committee of the whole or a council meeting and give a breakdown of the costs and where they're at and the cost to the city taxpayers. So if they do it here, the city taxpayers can hear it, where a lot probably won't tie into the regional district because they don't look at as paying regional district tax.
Yeah, thank you. So the costs are sorted out, but the distribution hasn't been entirely decided yet. As Councillor Doubt pointed out in his report, the decision around some of that, how that might get spent or paid for rather, the question about using some grant funds has been postponed, and that decision makes a difference to what you're looking for. And so Linda Greenan won't have an answer for you until the board makes that decision.
Okay.
For how much taxes people pay. And so part of the question is not been decided. And then all of the information you're looking for will be in a public report that you just click on and read. It's not going to be hard for you to do that. You can ask her and she'll just point you to the report.
Okay, it will be for me because I'm not into computers. But even after it's finished, Cindy, if she could come forward, I think it's owed to the city of people of Powell River, taxpayers of Powell River, to come forward with a breakdown of where the cost went and what it's going to cost us. I don't think that's asking too much from a taxpayer myself and many others that are asking what the cost actually is.
Right. So the regional district will have all of that information and they will totally provide it to you when you ask them. So it's a little bit like asking us to provide information from the province anyway, you're supposed to ask from the government that has the information for the copy that you're looking for. Like you're looking for a paper copy, I guess?
I just would like to see the breakdown of what it's actually going to cost the city taxpayer.
Yes. When the decision is made, we will report out that the decision was made. And if you want a copy of whatever report that it's all broken down in, that can be provided to you by the Cathet Regional District once that decision's been made. Does that help?
Okay, well, I'll just wait. I'll go down and see Linda then myself at the end of it, I guess.
Yeah, once the decision's made, she'll be able to give you an answer.
Yeah, okay.
Your worship, I just want to make a comment to Mr. Hassett.
I get to speak
Your
here.
question is very relevant, the city and to council, because we need to know those costs and taxation coming to our residents so that we can budget appropriately going forward, not knowing where our taxation is at. So I thank you for
Mr. Mayor.
coming forward tonight. And I am very much looking forward to the information that you've asked. And I will actually personally go to the regional district board at their next board meeting, and ask your question.
I would be surprised that council doesn't have an idea already. That surprises me.
CFO must have.
Mr. Hasek,
Councillor Doubt.
you want to know what impact the Regional Resource Recovery Center is going to have on city taxpayers.
Correct.
Okay, you learned about that in the spring when we had our budget process, when the taxation reports were coming in, and our CFO explained with a nice big picture on the wall exactly what was contributing to taxpayers that people within the city were going to pay and what people within the city paid as far as taxes to the Cathett Regional District. That's what the city knows about the Resource Recovery Project. Councillor Elliott and I have reported many times, did it again tonight, done it previous times, about how the process is going and what borrowing is taking place. The accountant for the regional district works for the regional district and reports there. They know what the regional district is spending. Go there and ask the questions. You get the reports every month and you get them annually. It's all there. Nobody's hiding it. You just want them to come and tell you, but it's not the job of the accountant of the regional district to come to meetings of City Hall and explain what's going on, because if you want the whole picture, they can't give it to you. There are costs that the city pays, and only the city knows about those.
That's the cost I'm looking for.
So go to the horse's mouth, ask at a regional district meeting, and you will get the answers. Nobody's trying to hide anything.
Okay, thank you. But remember, when you go on behalf of the city, you are going. You don't work.
Don't go on behalf of the city.
Okay.
I go on behalf of the taxpayers in the city who pay taxes to the regional district.
Correct. And I happen to be one of them.
You are.
Thank you.
Come on.
Anybody online? A motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded. All in favor? Thank you.
Mr. Murray wants a photo.
Take that.
Use the washroom.
You have some.
Just for the crowd.